Good morning, afternoon, evening, or whatever time you were tuning in. Welcome to another Decisions Lunch and Learn. I'm going to be your host, Gregory Goldston, on Wednesday, January 22nd. And let's go over what we got on the screen here, like always. Top right, you got the Decisions Support YouTube channel. Fantastic resource. Great videos up there. Also, the previous Lunch and Learns. You'll find them there. You got the Decision Solution Marketplace right below it, which has some pre-built projects that you can import into your own environment and work with. Some might be something that you can build off of, or maybe there's a concept that you're looking to implement and see an example that's been done before. It's a great place to look for that. And then, of course, DocBot. DocBot is one of the newer additions to the Decisions family, but he is wonderful and we like him. And he provides good insights into different ways you can configure decisions, understanding how steps work, or even just trying to build up a process for you. So, yeah. And then, of course, we added our EST stand up. I know we've mentioned this a few times, but just want to make sure the word gets out there. That is going to go on from 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time every business day that Decisions is operational. Okay. And we have a question already, so I'm going to flip over to my decisions sharing screen, and then we'll go over that question. So pardon me for just a moment while I do that. And I want to share once again, please. Yes, please. That's the screen, and go. All right. All right, so let me unmute you there, Jeremy, and we'll go over your question real quick. So the first question we have is there a way in a flow to get the URL of the page a user is currently on? All right. So you should be able to talk now. Let me make sure I understand your ask here. When you're asking the page that the user is currently on, do you mean that they would run this flow from a public folder or like the URL that displays up here? Can you give some context?
It's the URL in the browser. What I'm hoping to do is utilize that in a page visibility rule so that if I have them going to a URL that has Chrome equals off, they get one page. And if they have a URL that doesn't have Chrome equals off, they get a different page.
Mm, okay, I see. So we want to get the full URL that they're currently running this on. So let me make that flow first, and then we can work from there. Get URL. And then a follow-up question to this. So they would be running this on a page, correct? And
The flow would be running in a rule. Um, It'd be inside a page visibility rule as because it has an option to add an extension flow to a
okay.
rule.
Let's see here. How would we
So
get the
just within that flow, which its flow behavior is just a normal flow.
hmm. I'm almost wondering if you want a get page variable.
It errors out because it can't find the page context. I've
Oh,
already tried that.
have you set the flow type to user folder aware flow?
I have get the
Okay.
same. I
And
get
it
the
still can't
same
find it.
error. I'm guessing
Interesting.
because it's not a flow directly on the page, it's running in a visibility rule. It's
Oh,
not actually aware of the
yeah,
page it's on.
that would be it. Okay. Vitali, I see that you're raising your hand. I'm assuming it's with this question, so let me yeah, actually wait, you had your own question. Let's go over this one real quick. So let me think about how to approach this real quick. Okay, and we want to be able to understand what page they're currently on in the URL. We can't use the get page context in the flow unless it was a flow that was running in here, but we want a visibility rule that's going to be able to fetch that for us. So that's not going to quite work. Apologize, I'm thinking on this one. Trying to think of a good approach to this. Let me just throw something here so that way we can just have something to look at real quick. This won't take long. Just something to be able to view while we're looking for this. Let's get the account ID deleted by can't use portal. Okay, let's try that. So we want to add it into the page. I might have to think about this one and try to play around with it. I don't know immediately how the best way to get that would be unless you have some sort of flow that's on the page that fetches that information that you can pull from it. So for example, if you had something like a flow run part real quick, and then we're gonna see if this works. And then get page variable, specify that there, and then URL variable, and the variable name would be Chrome, right? So we're trying to get from it, whether that Chrome equals off or not. Get that. I don't know if it's going to pass it out though if I do that. That's the problem. I feel like I need a page
No,
variable.
it will pass it out. It just doesn't update the view there.
Okay. If we have that in, let me go back in that flow and actually alter the context real quick. No, but that would make it a user action flow. That needs to be folder aware, and I don't think that behavior is going to be consistent with that. And obviously we can't just get the I don't think we can just pass in the URL because I think that's just the base portal URL. Let me confirm that real quick, but I don't think that's going to work. But worth at least looking. Yeah, base portal URL, that's what I thought. I don't think it's going to fetch. No, not URL, the folder. All right, I'm going to reiterate the use case just to make sure that we understand what is happening in this. We are trying to have a flow that runs as a page visibility rule. That flow is going to check whether the user's current page has Chrome equals off or not in the URL, and then direct them to either two pages or one page, or either hide one page or hide no pages based upon whether or not that exists, correct? That is the end goal here.
Basically.
Okay.
Little different than where I was going, but that would get the same end goal.
What were you trying to do with it?
Um, Mine is I'm running a page visibility rule and then running a flow inside that would then capture the variable.
Mm, okay. And then the same rule would then evaluate that variable and choose to hide it or not.
Correct. Yeah, it's the flow that's running inside the rule that I need to get configured to pass out that variable, and then the rule will evaluate what to do based on that.
I see. I see. Okay. Yeah, let me try taking this back and building out something with this and see if I can get you a solution. I don't know immediately off the top of my head the best approach to get that Chrome equals off um from the URL outside of the get page variable section, but that has to be run in a folder aware context, which I don't think this would be. I'll go to global debugger, we'll check, right? Couldn't hurt, but let's oh, well, you know what? If I don't have a page on this, that's going to be a problem, isn't it? Value cannot be null, parameter path, error running, create data step. You know what? That's my own fault. There we go. Let's try this again. Yeah, that's not designed to pass out anything. That's fine. Yeah, that's going to keep running. That's all I want it to do while we check the global debugger to see if this is functioning. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I didn't think we were going to get anything from this. Okay, good to know. All right, Jeremy, I will look into that and I will get back to you to see if I can have some sort of solution set for you, okay?
Sounds good.
All right. All right. So going on to our next question from Marla. Oh, Vitali, is this regarding Jeremy's? Yeah, hold on. Did you have a suggestion, Vitali?
Yeah, yeah. Okay, something like this. My use case was when somebody, like a end user, is like tricky, and they will just adjust that Chrome off to Chrome on. So what I would have like a flow run part on a page that has like a empty form with a simple JavaScript that checks that. And
Mm,
then if yes, it redirects them to Chrome on, something like that. It's easy.
I get what you're saying. So you built a JavaScript that checks that, and same
Hmm.
flow run part idea, just you had it displaying or being used in a form.
Yeah. So if you adjust your URL and you try to erase that Chrome off, you would just go back to Chrome on.
Mm,
And I don't need
okay.
it to change the variable, because I'll have people accessing this page in different ways, which is why I need the separate pages for Chrome
Yeah, but
on or Chrome off.
on yeah, you can do basically the same thing. You just check, and your JavaScript will redirect them to where they need to be.
And
It's a
I'm not feeling,
couple
I don't
lines of
know
code.
anything at all about writing JavaScript, so I don't know if that would be a solution for me.
It's just
Yeah,
a couple lines of code.
I'll take a look into the project itself and see what we have in the decisions tools to take a look at that and then get back to you. But yeah, appreciate the insight. Alrighty, so we will now go on to Marla's question, which says, my question is about the allow actions output for external truth tables. I have enabled allow actions for the external truth table output, but have not been successful with setting the action output to run a subflow. Can this be done? Ooh, good question. Hello, you should be good to talk. I don't think you can run a subflow from that, but let me look.
No.
I'll look.
Okay. I haven't been able to figure it out, but
Okay, so let me show you a run truth table real quick, and we'll show you how this functions here. I know you know how a truth table works, so let
the
me break
regular
down.
truth table it is fine. Um, it's the external truth table,
Interesting. So you can run the subflow from the regular, but not the external.
right?
Because you know every column from the external would be taken from the database, and you don't have a separate action. Let's make the comparison real quick here. So
Okay.
we'll set up input data. We'll just say name. That's easy. And then let's throw some of the trainers in here. Okay, close that. Add a row, add a row. Oh, it will not let me type. And then we'll add Jeremy. So, for those on the call right now, what Marla is talking about is the option to add an action as one of the outcomes for these truth tables. So if you check allow actions, now one of the options here, you see the actions that get added right here. You can then choose to modify text, run a particular flow when this particular one hits. And this is something that can be done in truth tables. In fact, one of our projects, the asset tagging, requires that you use this to modify the tag string that gets passed into this truth table. So adding actions is a very nice utility in truth tables. Now, what she's talking about is an external truth table, which is sourced from a separate, source. So if I want to run a different truth table instead, and this one is going to be an external truth table, we have to select a data source that comes from a report. I'm going to use the account one because it is, again, just a wonderful source for everything right here. And then we have to add particular outputs. I just want to use email and then an output from that. So let me go to email address, and I want to output. A lot of these the accounts aren't going to have, so let's go modified date. Yeah, there we go. All right, so the way that this works is you set up the email address, you go over here, let's save this. And then we're going to set up the input data to be email. Save that. Email equals. And now this action right here, you see these different columns right here? These are available to choose from in the report themselves. So under email address, when you have title, you select email equals. And then for modified date, that's going to be our output, which let's see, the following fields are required. Yeah. I think the default output is not a date time, so I think that's why it's doing it. Let me add something else. Let me do the account ID. All right. Account ID. Oh, nope. Not what I'm looking for. Apologies. Let me get rid of that real quick. Yep, default output data. We'll rename that in a moment. And then this is going to not be Boolean. This is going to be date time. Save that. See if we have options here. Modified date, title, default output data. There we go. Cool. All right. So now our truth table's working. Here's where things get tricky. When we check allow actions on an external truth table, it doesn't create this column dynamically because these columns all come from the truth table sources themselves. I will ask our developers to see if this is intentional or an oversight.
Okay.
But I could understand if allowing actions would cause a problem with that. Of course, you could have a string match step afterwards that would then specify what gets run with the output, but I understand that that would be a little trickier.
Okay. Like if you press the plus sign that's next to default output data, it says new output data. And I was kind of expecting to find something about running a flow, but I didn't see any. There's nothing, no way to make that happen that I've found. So,
Yeah, I don't believe that's currently set up
mhm.
for external truth tables to be able to
Okay,
allow
well,
that. But
that answers that. Thank you.
yeah, sure thing. Did you need any other additional workarounds suggested while this is here, or?
Mm, no, we just really want to be able to run a flow off of the external truth table.
Oh, no
So,
worries. Yeah, I will absolutely check with our developers to see again if that's intentional, see if that can
okay.
get changed if it's not intentional. But yeah,
Okay, great. Thank you.
absolutely. Alrighty, so let's go to our next question, which is from Grant. In a public folder, let's say you have a dashboard that has 2 to 3 pages. How do you configure the group permissions for multiple pages, not just one? Ah, good question, Grant. That is with page visibility rules. So let me expel this and I will let you talk. That's what um Jeremy was mentioning earlier, and you should be able to talk. So let's create a new page. Actually, we can use the same page. There's nothing wrong with using this page. I'm just going to get rid of this because I don't want it to keep flashing. So let's see. I am blanking. Hold on. I'm blanking on the page visibility rules. Let's ask Stockbot real quick. Where are page visibility rules? Pardon me, I'll bring up my screen there in just a moment.
You have to add a configuration folder for the default folder type.
Ah, right. So that you can actually choose certain actions there. Okay, so what he's talking about here is when you're doing the create data types and you add a configuration extension, we are going to add, sorry, user defined types. There should be configuration folder. Yeah, add folder actions and configuration right here. And then from here, we just want to select the folder type. Let's go down a little bit.
It's called
want
default folder.
Thank you. Right there.
Yeah, it should be that one.
Default folder behavior. All right. So what you're doing here is you've basically added an entity extension to the page, right? So I can create a page on this folder that I can then display on the dashboard. And after I do that, here, I'll show you what this looks like real quick. Let me, once again, we'll drag a report viewer. We'll just pick our same one. Why not? Save it. And you will notice that we can add page visibility rules here, all right? What these do are these are going to specify what kind of users under what conditions can see which pages on that main folder. So something I want to specify with this as well is that you are choosing what to filter out, okay? So when you specify this is true, it's going to filter out those users. So let us say that select a flow dev folder page name. Let's say that the page name equals, I think we called it page one, right? I think that's what we call it, right? And then we want to check that under folder. Where's the account? Might not be under that. Here we go. Initiating account. Oh, I should pick, sorry. I should probably not pick initiating account, but rather the initiating account email. Yeah, because that will give me equal stuff. Equals so and so. All right, a group. It could be the initiating account email address. It could be their group. It could be all sorts of things. And when you specify that, which I think your use case was group, right? So might actually be under, hold on, not initiating account, but initiating user groups. Aha, there we go. Here we go. So initiating user groups, list contains so-and-so, right? So in their list of groups that they're a part of, let's say that if it contains designers, then anyone who is part of the designers group is not going to be able to see page one. Because we're choosing if both of these are true, if the initiating user is part of the designers group and the page name is page one, they can't use it. So that's how you set up visibility rules in order to be able to control who can see what particular dashboards. Now this is the main one, right? So let me add the other page to it, okay? So we are going to add a page, pick that. That's going to be page one, save it. Page data of this name already exists in this folder. I think it was under something else and I just renamed it. That might be why that's going on. But that's the yeah, okay, so that's under page. But that's the kind of stuff that you're setting up. You're setting configuration folder actions to that folder type, which is page, to prevent users from seeing the dashboard. Is that making some sense? You should be able to talk, by the way. Oh yeah, I see. God, thank you. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I don't mind building out like a small project that just demonstrates that functionality. That won't take me too long, so I'll send that to you. Then you can mess around with it from there. All right. Vitali, your question. In a report column, can you have multiple links to something? I want to say almost certainly no, but let me confirm that real quick. Here, let me let you talk, all right? Oh yeah, you can already
Yep.
talk. All right.
Yep.
So what he's talking about is in the report here, when you create a report in decisions, I'll add the account source again. Again, it's just easy. You can add stuff that's already part of the default columns in this data source, the default fields, but also under calculated columns, you can add a run flow inline field, which creates a link. You can check show
Mhm.
UI so that people can see it. You pick the flow that you're going to run. I'll just create a new one here real quick, and I'm just going to connect it to the end and then save that real quick.
Can,
And then
can
you
you
choose
then use like calculate columns, like merge text fields for
use a
those?
so you're saying use calculate columns, merge two text fields that are both run inline flows and pass them in?
Or create some HTML that will represent those links together.
Okay.
So for example, let's say I have an account. I
Hmm.
have a separate flow that edits account and deletes account. I would like to represent those under one column that says actions,
Hmm.
which will be edit or delete. Edit will call the UI to edit an account, and delete will just say, do you really want to delete this account? Delete, okay. So separate flows.
Okay, so you specify two different ones. You put the links down here when you specify is link to be able to combine the text fields, and then they have multiple ones that they can select from here.
Like one column saying actions.
Yeah, yeah, that might work. So if I were to create, I'm actually going to make this a display text just so it's easy to see what's going on here. So I will call this start. Save that. All right, that's now a run flow, and then I'm going to add one more calculated column under the run flows, and we're going to call it something else. There you are. Show UI, call this end. Again, you may have different processes. I'm just trying to make this very simple. Create new. Create that, drag that to the end here. Save that. Show UI. And then for combined text fields, we are selecting both of those. It is interesting. I don't see the run flow options coming up. So let me give this a title that is something that you'll see at the very beginning of this, just to make this easier, you know. And now with combined text fields, the first field. Yeah, that's what I was wondering. I'm not seeing any custom fields and calculated columns to be selected from that. So even though you have the option to combine fields that are already specified within the reports, and you can set those to be links, so you can still attain this functionality, I believe, but I don't know if you can do it with your calculated columns.
Can you write HTML in your column so it will display fields
In my standard column,
in combine
in
or
combine.
whatever in any, like can you do like HTML stuff?
I mean,
In,
I've got to pick two different fields that can be their own
it
actions,
doesn't have to
HTML.
be that doesn't have to be combined text fields. Can can you do calculated and just write HTML into that?
Calculate HTML field, that's what you're asking?
Yeah, just text field or something and write HTML into that.
Calculate text field. Match inline. Merge text inline field, is that what you mean?
Yeah, can you write HTML into that?
Yeah, probably. You can set that up. You can set the things to be linked here. So if I were to use can use portal and then company, I don't know if I can set each of these to be a link though, even under HTML. I don't know if it would dynamically do that, but it's possible. So what Vitaly is saying is that it is possible that you might be able to write HTML characters into your merge text editor that displays your default fields underneath of them to be used as links, which can be done, but you can't have a calculated column appear under these. So you can't use that link to run one of the flows from one of your run flow inline fields rather than one of these. You would have to basically configure your fields that already exist to be actions, and each of them acting as links to a particular site or a particular, well, yeah, a particular site, particular URL.
If I have a flow and I have a link to that and I can post something to that, or just
You
get,
can post it, but you need to authorize it, right? If you want to specify the
but that's gonna be
session
inside of
ID.
decisions, right?
Right, that's what I'm saying. So I don't know if you can specify session ID in the HTML that you're trying to make a post call inside of a merge text editor.
You don't have to. You just use like current session. Whatever person is using that, you just use the same session.
When you set the current session, it still needs to authorize it. If I were to call that API URL in decisions from decisions, it would just show unauthorized. So
What do you mean by that?
I'll show you. So if I'm trying to go to the flow right here, not this is a bad example of a flow. If I'm trying to go to this flow right here, configure an integration to call it as an API service, right? And then I'm just going to go into view, show everyone how this works here. If I'm trying to use the current name session as my authorization and call that from inside the HTML, pardon me, just taking a little bit. There's nothing to call in here, right? You have the output JSON type, and then you're passing the flow, but current session should still need a session ID to call it. Yeah, use current session ID. Look, that has to be passed into the JSON itself in order to call it. Now, you might be able to do that by login. You might be able to pass it in through login and it recognizes that because you're logged into the browser already. So that might work. I don't want to say for certain, or you can enable a guest account, specify those credentials that go in.
Can you switch back to current session?
Yeah.
Okay, so get still. Yeah,
As of version 8 forward,
but you can get that session ID inside of the flow, right? From
yeah,
database.
yeah, you could probably find a way to get inside of the flow. Yes, I agree. But I'm saying that if you're trying to call that from a merge HTML, you're not having a flow run because you can't make the run flow inline field run by a call from the HTML, right? Because the run flow inline field is not going to be accessible because it is a calculated column. You cannot run that dynamically, is what I'm trying to say.
Can you just copy that whatever you have in call via get, but without the session ID?
Copy this without the session ID.
Yeah, call via. No, just call it with the flow
Just
in the
call it without the
browser.
session ID.
Yeah, in the
Yeah,
browser.
sure, absolutely.
Yeah, just that.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I'm wondering if without the session ID, if login will still work. That's the one thing I was mentioning before.
Yeah, it works
Yeah, you get a
because you
callback. No path result. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. 500 description error.
Yeah, but you have active session, right?
Yeah, I'm in the active session right now. Yes.
Yeah, because that's the point. When you log in and you have access to that action, you have access to decisions, you have active session. So if you call that, it doesn't matter, right?
Right. It's kind of like verifying by login still, but yeah.
Yeah, if you, for example, if you don't go out for like 5 hours or whatever, it should
Mhm.
be fine.
Yeah. Yeah, true. Yeah, as long as you're not logged in. I mean, you can set session timeout for users as well. So
Mm-hmm.
if
Mm-hmm.
you just set it for close to infinity, you'd be fine.
Yeah.
Okay, cool beans. All right. So I will move on to the next question now. Alexander, we got a 3 questions in 1, and I'm gonna mute you so that we can talk about these. So the first question is, could you show how to hook up to a Postgres database? The second question is, when overriding a field with another, do I have to use a for each loop? And the third question is, how can I set API calls to be dynamic for my dev, UAT, and prod environment? All right, Alex. I can answer 2 of those right off the bat, and the middle one, the second one, I'm going to need a little bit more context for. So let's start with the first one. Could you show how to hook up to a Postgres database? Absolutely. So I guess one question on this. Are you asking about installing decisions against a Postgres database or just connecting an already installed decisions to Postgres?
Connecting an already installed decisions to Postgres. We need to set up a connection. But the thing is, the naming is a little weird. I'm supposed to meet with our DBA later, and I just wanted to make sure I can tell him, like, hey, this is where the port number goes. This is where the IP address goes. It's just because it doesn't like say the general naming conventions.
Understandable. So you
Hmm.
go over here, you're going to set the Postgres right here, server name, database name, username, right? And then you specify the password. So just for comparison here, when you're using a SQL, you have server and database name, and then you have username, password. It's the exact same type of login credentials. It's just that Postgres is not using Windows Auth as an option. So you just see them all at once. Another option you can do, pardon me while I pull this up on our docs site because I don't remember the format off the top of my head. Where is it?
Uh, Make it my input. You can always use custom connection string checkbox.
Yep, that's what I was grabbing is the format of that. So if you're using custom connection string, and I'll put this in the chat as well, this is taken directly from our doc site. This is the format of a Postgres connection string, which you specify the host, the database, the port that you're trying to connect over. You want to set integrated security to false, specify username, password, and then set trust server certificate to be true. So this is the standard for connecting to a Postgres database with a custom connection string, rather than specifying each of these individually. Is that making some sense?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. You said you put it in the chat, the
I'm
string, or
about
did you
to.
put the link to the
I'm I'm gonna put the link to the
mhm.
documentation that contains the string. All right.
Awesome.
Yeah, so let me put that in real quick to the webinar chat for everyone, and there we go. You should have access to that right now. And then, yeah, from there, once you've created it, then you can add extra queries, table views, all that sort of stuff to that connection. All right.
And Gregory, on that option, can you demonstrate agents? Because agents are something that not lots of people using, but it's like it's a really cool feature.
Agents
So
are really neat. I want to go over the other questions first before I
sure.
demonstrate agents, just to make sure we have time for everyone. But yeah, if we have time afterward, I don't mind going over those. So the next question in that line of 3 questions was, when overriding a field with another, do I have to use a for each loop? All right. So Alex, what are you trying to accomplish with writing over a field? What do you mean by that?
So essentially, I have a set of data that's coming in,
Okay.
and I do a comparison on two fields. And if that comparison equals false, then I just want to overwrite the other field with the first one. So essentially, I'm just checking two addresses or something like that, and then, or like, let's say two numbers, and if the numbers don't match, I want the address in the first column to overwrite that one. I know I can do this with a for each, but it feels like, I don't know, it feels like I shouldn't need to, or maybe I'm confused and I do have to do that. But I just want to know if there's another way for me to basically overwrite fields with the existing data in the stream.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you, I'm trying to understand where the for each comes into play. Are you going through every single one, or is that
Well,
what
yeah,
you mean by that?
that's the way I've been taught is like, you get your list or whatever or your data set, and then you
Mhm.
run it through a for each, and then you do a mapping step so you can map every single field. But I feel like if I'm just gonna, if I'm just mapping over a field, like if I'm just saying, hey, this field now equals this, I shouldn't need to do a for each loop. And I want to see if that's the case or maybe I'm, off base here.
No, no, you're absolutely right. So, in fact, the quickest thing you want to do is, let's say I'm gonna get a placeholder step. All right. All right. So you've got your data coming in, and I'm going to say that this is the step that compares them. Okay. So compares the data. We have rules for that. You can check this equals this, right? So actually, a rule will just be, that's just easier. Let me just pull up a rule real quick. Hold on. All right. So let us create a new statement rule. Set up input. I'm going to define two objects. I'll call it object one and object two. All right. And these are going to be your two fields that you're comparing here. You're going to pass them in, right? Object one equals object two. If it's true, it outputs it, overwrites it. If it's false, it doesn't, right? So you have that, it compares it, and then you say, okay, if they're true, we don't need to do anything, right? Ignore that. If they're false, then one of these objects takes precedence, right? And I'm assuming it's object one for yours. I don't really know, but
Oh
let's
yeah, it's arbitrary. We could just say object one.
all right, I'll call these the same thing. Object one, if I can spell right. Oh goodness. There we go. Same sort of thing. I'm just going to make these inputs so when we do our unit test, we'll just pull them in from there. So flow data, object one, flow data, object two, object two. Okay. If it's false and your goal is to overwrite that object in the database, you can just use one of your user-defined steps, right? I don't know if I have any case entities or anything like that set up, but instead of using a, here, I'll just do it here.
I don't know if it makes a difference that I'm pulling this from a database and then going to upload it back up to a database. I don't know if that changes anything.
Um, it just adds a few more steps. The concept's still the same.
Gregory, if it's database stored, I would use selective update just.
Right. Well, I don't have
Yeah,
any created right now. That's all I was just trying to show is I'm just trying to outline the process for now, and then we'll go into the details. So the idea is that you're checking it, it's false, it updates that particular field, and then it does, it now just sends it back to the database based upon whatever it is. Now, if it's in decisions already, now you're pulling stuff from a database, you mentioned. Is this stuff stored in a decisions data structure?
Yes, it will be.
All right, perfect. All right, then we're going to make that right now. Okay. So we are going to create data types. I'm going to use a case entity just because it gives us a bunch of options. So that's kind of nice. I will call this object, and I'll call this name. Just two separate fields on it. Okay, and then save that. Yep, don't want that. Go back into our writing over field flow. And now if you go under here, user defined types, and then under case entities, you have selective update. All right. So you pass in the data that's coming in, right? And then you have to specify the entity ID of the particular item that you brought in to selective update, right? So it knows which one it's trying to update. You just pass in which object should take precedence, which in this case, we're just going to pretend it's object one, flow data, object one. And then the name we can ignore. We don't need to update the name in this case. We just want to update this field, right? And this one step can be used to update as many fields as you want. You can check all the rules beforehand and then pass along to the path to update if it needs an update. Is that kind of what you're getting at, or is that not quite what you're asking as far as the process goes?
I mean, if it updates every single record in that field to be object one now, then yes, it does what I'd like.
Oh, I see what you're saying. So you compare the objects, and if
Mhm.
they don't match, you update every record with the new object?
Yes, every single record will be updated to object one, whatever object one is. Like
Oh,
object one is the source of truth, and I want to make sure they match. But if they don't, go ahead, update, object two to be object one.
I see. Okay. No, this will not update every single one. This only updates the one that you are specifying to update. So I wonder if update entities actually is better. And then let's type name. That's our user defined types, case entity, Alexander, name, object, extension name, and then fetch criteria. There are the inputs. I wonder if this works for all of them. We're going to create a few and see if this functions as expected. All right. So,
Gregory, I used that, and that should work.
okay. I'm just trying to make sure that it's not going to error out without an entity ID. That's my only concern. But I think it should function. That is the only thing that I'm concerned about. So let's create some data first, all right? And then we can do that. So we will go into user defined types, case entity, and grab this. Delete that. We're going to run that right to the end. And then we're going to just build data on this. Makes it easier. Ignore all that. Name, constant. Call this one Rob. And then this object one, I'm feeling ice cream flavors. Let's go with vanilla. All right. Folder description, don't care. Folder name, kind of care. So that'll just be Alex Case. And then parent folder ID absolutely matters. Gotta put that somewhere. Why not? Okay. And now I'm gonna run this once. All right, because we pick from object one and object two. So this doesn't matter for this run. We're not passing them in. I'm going to run this one more time. All right, let's run that. Okay, we have two objects created now. Now we are going to get rid of that create, drop that, move that back here, and then we are going to compare two different objects, right? So the first object I'm going to compare is something, and then the second one will be vanilla, all right? And then we are going to update object one if those don't match in every single case entity, all right? So let me show you what this looks like real quick first so you can see. We'll go out here, go to public, page. You can see the different case entities that get created when we go to folder view. Alex case, right? We click on that. Gregory Mint, we're going to go to the one right before it as well. Under folder view, Alex case, and that has Robin vanilla, right? So if we go back into here, writing over a field, and now as soon as we've run this in the debugger, we have to specify object one and object two. Object one, I am going to set to strawberry. And then this will be vanilla. Vanilla will not match strawberry. All right. Start debugging. It's going to go down here. It's going to run this. And then it takes strawberry as the input and is going to update all the entity fields with that strawberry. So now if we go back over to our case entities, we should see That's strawberry. That's strawberry. Is that the functionality you're looking for?
Quick question. Is
Yes.
this, I'm sorry, is this working on each respective field, or is it just taking the first one and saying these don't match, make everything strawberry?
It's just saying these don't match. If you're trying to go through each field and compare it to them, you will need some sort of loop. That's
Okay,
why,
cool.
yeah. There are two different ways you can do that. You can use a
Hmm.
for each loop, right? Or you can use a run flows for list. Run flows for list might work for your use case here. And the way
Hmm.
that this works is you specify an input and an output, all right? And then you create what is essentially a loop in here. What it happens is it takes in a list of particular type. In your
Hmm.
case, it'll be your Alexander data, right? It creates a flow that runs for each individual object that comes in. So
Okay.
for every object in the list, a flow will run to handle that object and then pass it out. All right. And because you are just trying to update records in a database, you
Hmm.
can set this to thread job async, which means that this all runs in the background. Because I'm assuming that that update doesn't need to keep running more steps after the update is complete, right?
Afterwards, I have to upload it to, I have to do an API call and update our database.
Okay, well, I guess you may want to do what is called async and wait then. What this will do is
Hmm.
this will split this into still separate flows, right?
Hmm.
And they'll run across different thread queues. In this case, we have a thread count of 4, which means it creates 4 separate work queues to handle your list, which typically is a lot faster than just going through each one by one, right?
Hmm.
Now, the only downside of this is that your output at the end will not be in the same order as the order you input it. If you're updating them by ID, that doesn't matter, right? Because
Hmm.
if you're just checking IDs to compare against an update, no problem. But if the order of the stuff you pass in matters, this is not a good use for this step.
The order doesn't matter as long as the records stay, within each other, like,
Oh, absolutely. The records will be consistent. All the
okay,
information
good.
you pass out will be passed out in that same particular field, right? If this is the
Hmm.
list of your records, you still get each individual list item will have the same items in it, or whatever items you change in it, just not in the same order. The
Okay.
field, the
Just
fields will be in the same order.
input from me. I would just write a query to update with no lock to the database.
You mean post the run flows to list to compare fields?
No, create query to update with no lock. Create.
You're
You should
saying about
create.
raw
Not. No, not raw.
integration, right?
Yeah, just create update query.
Create an update query to check if the fields. Are you trying to do that to compare if this equals this, or
I would do
Are
that
you
in query, database query.
are you saying not to use decisions at all and just keep it all in a query?
Uh, use decisions query with parameterized things
for the update or for the comparison?
for the update.
Okay. That all right, that's fair. So what he's saying is instead of like updating entities here and then, the database call, make an integration that will then call back to your database with the updated information after it's been evaluated.
And
Okay.
the point is that your database could be locked because somebody could use that table, and the table could be locked for
Mm.
you to update.
Okay, so what you're saying is make sure that when you're doing the update that it has a no lock feature so that way you're not running into a problem trying to update the records if someone else is trying to use them while you're processing them in decisions.
Yep.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, so the suggestion here is to create a no lock feature. That's going to depend on your database architecture, how much is used. That is not something that I can say for sure to definitely do or not do, but that is an option.
Cool.
Last question, how can I set API calls to be dynamic for my dev, UAT, and prod? Easy, right here. String match step. Possible matches, you just put your 3 URLs. I'll call this dev URL. You're going to put the actual URL, right? Test URL,
Yes.
prod URL. Compare that against flow data, base portal URL, right? Each of these is going to be different for the different environments that you're running, right? You got 3 outcomes now. You just run a different query for each outcome.
And Alexander, I would use like a constant in constants. Say this is dev, this is like prod environment, whatever environment variable, and you can get that from flow data, like which environment you're running in.
Okay, great. That sounds good.
Alrighty. Smith, I saw you had a question. Let's go over it. All right. Hi. What is the access users will need to run flows? We are thinking of creating a dashboard and allow users to execute flows, but at the same time, they should not be able to change code, etc. Was the best way to achieve this? Thanks. Oh, okay. Yeah, here. Let me let you talk real quick because this is just a permissions. So where? Hold on. I'm looking for people real quick. There you go. You should be able to talk now.
Yeah, hi. Yeah, I wanted to know what kind of permissions we should set. Basically, from the dashboard, they should be able to run the flow because they want to update some data or see some reports, but they might know the URL. So even if they know the URL, they shouldn't be able to change anything in the code, the flow, or anything else.
Yeah, all you have to do is for whatever particular user group that you want for either the page on the flows, if I can do this for the whole folder actually. I'll just show you real quick. Go to permissions, manage permissions, and then for this particular user group, let's say here, I've got a sales reps group in here. That's pretty cool. So let's say for sales reps, I just have them can open, can view, can use. They can't make any changes with those permissions.
Okay, got you.
Yeah. So you just set this particular permissions on the particular entities or folders containing those entities because of permission inheritance, right? So permission inheritance means that anything underneath that nested it also carries those same permissions that you add.
Sure. And if they have these permissions, but they need, even if they are running from a dashboard, they would have to have access, right? Like this access, they have to log into decisions.
I'm not sure I'm understanding your question.
If they have access to the dashboard, right, do they have to log in with a user ID and password into decisions?
If they're trying to see the dashboard, you can do that. That's a little bit more of a complicated question. So here's the dashboard, right? They can see this page, they log into decisions, and they see this dashboard, right? Yeah, they don't have access to projects here. They're not designers. They can't go in the back end and do anything. All they can do is click on this stuff right here. They won't have the option to change anything if they're not a designer. If you can call decisions and display the window as a HTML in a separate viewing, like an HTML viewer from a separate website. You can do that, and you need to make sure that that website is authenticating properly to be able to see that. But if your goal is to have them log in, that would just be as simple as giving them an account, logging them in, and make sure whatever group that they're a part of has the right permissions.
Okay, so basically what I'm hearing is even if we create a dashboard and things like that, if they want to run a flow, basically that's why they want the dashboard to run the flow and things like that. So they need to have the whatever the can write, the can view permissions. Otherwise, and basically log into decisions. Otherwise, they won't be able to run the flow, right?
Smith, In your case, I would just create a name session that will be assigned to the group that will allow to do that, and they would not have to go to the decisions plugin. So if you say, if you give them URL saying that access this page using this name session, they will not have to go through the decisions login.
Okay, so for the dashboard, but they would still
Or
be, but how will they be able to run the flow without access?
with the name session.
Yeah, so let me
Mhm.
go into that real quick.
Sure.
You under here, accounts,
Mm.
groups, identity providers, you have named sessions, all right?
Mhm.
These named sessions give particular accounts, particular permissions, and access to different things inside of
Mhm.
the environment, all right?
Okay.
You can specify these as a way to authenticate to be able to do that instead of login. Or
Okay.
if you want them to log in, they can do that too. It depends on your use case and what you're trying to accomplish. Both of these will achieve the same functionality of what you're trying to do, with them being able to go to a dashboard, run a flow from the dashboard, and not have permissions to do anything else. Either of these will work.
Okay, great. I'll
Yep.
try this. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. And you had a second one. How do we create a constant to store passwords and use in our code? An S3 bucket password? So you mean like a global constant?
Yeah, is that the only way we could do it? Because when we use S3 buckets and we are required to provide whatever the authorization and things like that, right? So in a couple of other places as well. What's the best way I can think? I was thinking constants and like that, but is there any other way I can achieve that?
Probably project constants or global constants. So if you only have the S3 bucket integration working in a particular project, I would just set it as a project constant under
Mm-hmm.
manage. Let's see, is it configuration? Variables, constants. Here we go. All right.
Okay.
So I'm going to call it a type password. I'm just going to call this S3 bucket password. And the value is going to be decisions is awesome. And we'll just leave a description blank. As soon as I create this, now whenever I go inside of any flow
Mm-hmm.
and I try to pull from flow data, right? Let's edit
Mm-hmm.
this one. I have project constants, right?
Oh, okay, got it.
And I can
Mm-hmm.
grab that constant and grab the value and use that inside of that project.
Perfect. And just for our knowledge that, when we are storing this, is there an option called password when I create a constant so that it's encrypted and things like that?
It is not encrypted, but it is hidden, as you can see right here.
Okay, but there it won't, even when I'm creating a constant, it's not encrypted. There's nothing called as a password as an option there.
Password is an option. That's what we set this one to be. I will go back to that real quick.
Sure.
Variables, constants. Under here, under type,
Okay,
I
got it.
specified it
Yeah, I
here
missed
as
that.
password. Yeah.
Okay, then there it should be encrypted, right?
I don't know if it's encrypted. It is hidden, but I don't know if it's encrypted. I would need to look into the code to figure that out.
It's not encrypted.
Yeah.
If you go to the developer tools here,
Yeah.
it's not gonna be encrypted.
Yeah.
It's
So
just hidden.
yeah,
It's just masked.
Okay.
Yep, that's it. Mask. That's the word. So yeah, it's masking it from being seen. It's not an encrypted value.
Yeah,
Okay.
if you go to developer tools, you should be able to see that.
Yeah. So yeah, your F12 or Control I functionality. So when you're looking over here, you can check the different stuff that's on the page, and you'll see the password visible.
Okay, got
Yeah.
it. Sure. Thank you. Thank
Yeah,
you so much.
absolutely. Sure thing. All right. That is going to be our last question for today. Thank you all very much for coming. We are over time, but that is a-okay. I appreciate y'all just providing some excitement on this day where we had a bunch of snow and barely anyone's here. So it's kind of nice. All right.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Have a wonderful day, y'all. I'm going to be ending this now.